What's up, everybody? This is the Sports League Podcast, back for another week. I'm your host, Alex Leak. We got the co-host, Amanda, on the show as always. And Amanda, week 9 recap coming up. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, there were definitely some highlights to this week, some games that you and I picked correctly, and some interesting performances by a couple teams. So I'm ready to get started.
Yeah, and let's talk about the game in Germany on Sunday morning, the Dolphins and the Chiefs. And it's kind of set up like a Super Bowl type atmosphere. You know, the Germany fans really show up and are loud and passionate about the game. And you got Tyreek Hill going up against his former team. You had to be excited for this game in Germany.
Yeah, it's one of those games where like either the Dolphins were going to show up and prove that they were a legitimate contender, or what we thought would happen, and Kansas City would, prove that they're only good against bad teams, and that Kansas City is the more well-rounded team. And I mean, as we saw, the latter was correct for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the Dolphins were the healthiest they've been all year. Xavier Howard and Jalen Ramsey both on the field at the same time for the first time. Vic Fangio getting all of his weapons. So a true test for Kansas City. And when the Chiefs jump out 21 nothing at halftime, it looked like they were going to run away with this. Credit to Miami for making it interesting, but it never really felt like the Dolphins were going to win this game, did it?
No, I didn't have a single thought during the game about the Dolphins being able to come back. I mean, they did a great job of limiting Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
Mahomes spread the ball around a lot more than he's used to. So kudos to them for that. I mean, that's something a lot of teams haven't even come close to doing this season. But I mean, Kansas City still did exactly what everyone thought they would do.
Yeah, and it was nice to see the Chiefs actually in this game. I noticed a couple times using Kelsey as the decoy. You would see Kelsey getting double teamed on his route, and then they throw underneath of that, and the guy's wide open. I kind of like that adjustment by Andy Reid and the Chiefs there because Kelsey's going to get all that attention.
Yeah, I mean, he's pulling defenders off the ball. I mean, he completed passes to five different receivers on the opening drive, 11-yard touchdown to the rookie Rice. I mean, if people are gonna chase down Kelsey, you do what you got to do, spread the ball around, and he's got receivers who can catch. So, I mean, it was a great setup for him.
Yeah, and it's interesting. This year more than ever, the Chiefs can play defense, right? There's not as much pressure on the offense. Again, they only scored 21 points, but that Chiefs defense is playing at a high level. And you mentioned guys like L'Jarius Sneed and Chris Jones and Karlaftis. I'm really impressed with Steve Spagnuolo and that Chiefs defense.
Yeah, I think they played a really good game. I mean, I remember one point last week on the podcast, I said something about how they needed Sneed to stay on Hill, and then Snead went out of the game at one point, and then the very next play, Hill gave the ball back to the Chiefs. So I guess they didn't really need him. Um, but it was a good showing on both sides of the ball for the Chiefs. It's interesting because they both have a bye week in week 10. And it
Yeah.
was almost as if the Dolphins were so comfortable with their record so far that they were just cruising into that bye week, while the Chiefs were real pissed off coming off that embarrassing loss to Denver. And they did not care that there was a bye week coming up. They just needed to reestablish themselves as not the team who got their butts kicked by Denver.
Yeah, and that's okay. Like the Dolphins are in a division where, and they're going up against a tough Chiefs team, and they're in a division where even despite the loss, they're still first place. But there's real concern here with the fact that the Dolphins beat bad teams, but can't beat the contenders. They can't beat the Bills, the Eagles, the Chiefs. And I think that's going to come back to haunt them, even if they win the division and host a playoff game. I don't see this team being an actual threat in the AFC, and that's something they're going to have to figure out as like very soon.
Yeah, I think the AFC is as a whole way more competitive than the NFC this season. So Miami
Yeah.
definitely has their work cut out for them. But going 0-3 against teams with winning records, the three teams you mentioned, that's not a good look. Although I will say they were way more competitive in this matchup than they were versus the Bills and the Eagles. So there is some progress there.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see if they can, keep it going and get better. And it's all about playing your best at the right time of year. So hit their stride in December and January. But I'm not sold on this Dolphins team. I have so much more confidence in Kansas City. Um, and let's go to Vikings Falcons, which Jaron Hall gets the start against Taylor Henneke, and we were feeling confident about the switch from Desmond Ritter to Taylor Henneke, but none of us could have expected the outcome of this game, huh?
No, I mean, I thought that the the upheaval with the quarterback situation in Minnesota was a clear win with Taylor starting. And I mean, the Vikings had even more upheaval during the game. I mean, that concussion in the first quarter for Jaron Hall, Dobbs came in 5 days on the team at the trade deadline. He didn't know players' names. He was calling by their jersey numbers, yelling "Yo, purple" to get people's attention. So I am suddenly a Joshua Dobbs fan. I did not like him in Arizona, but man, he really showed up and proved that he could go with the flow and figure things out. I mean, they were telling him what the play calls were as he went. Like he was fully not prepared to start. He went another week to kind of learn the playbook, but I mean, good for him.
Yeah, this was one of the most incredible games of the weekend. Once, when Kirk Cousins goes down, you feel like the Viking season is shot, right? Jaron Hall's getting the start, making his first career start. You don't expect anything. You expect Atlanta to take care of business and win this game. And we felt like Kirk Cousins was the offense, and no one else could do what he's done. But credit to Josh Dobbs. He didn't get much recognition for what he was doing in Arizona, keeping a bad team competitive. And yeah, he comes in, doesn't know the offense, doesn't know his teammates, and the way he did it too, like breaking tackles and running for big plays on fourth down and in the clutch, like very impressive performance by Josh Dobbs.
Well, I will say I thought the game was a goner. So my theory is when one of the first couple scores of the game is a safety, that game is just shot. Like it's going to be a shit show. I mean, before he completed a single throw to a receiver, he was sacked for a safety. And then deep in their own territory, there was a strip sack, which led to another 3 points. I mean, it just looked like it was going to be a hot mess. And he turned it around and did not let that get to him. Like when your first play as a player on a new team is a safety, like how does that not fuck with your confidence? But he turned
Yeah.
it around and stayed focused and pulled it off. So I was quite impressed with him.
Yeah, and the Vikings defense is better than it was last year. And we talked about how many pieces they lost, like Zadarius Smith, Dalvin Tomlinson, Patrick Peterson, so many pieces. And yet they seem to be better almost and keeping the team in games and 4 game winning streak without Justin Jefferson. He's been on IR for this entire winning streak. They're going to be getting him back. Any chance they're 5-4, first time all season they're above 500. How crazy would it be if Josh Dobbs can keep this up and potentially get these Vikings into the playoffs?
I mean, the NFC North is a bit of a mess right now. And I mean, the Lions had a bye week, so we'll see how they come back. But I mean, there's a chance
Yeah,
it could work out.
I'm rooting for them because I don't want it to just be a cakewalk for the Lions, right? I want someone to be in the mix, and they're only a game and a half back, I believe, from Detroit. So anything's possible.
Yeah, and if we know anything about Detroit, we know they like to lose when it comes down to when it's important to start winning. So
Yeah, second half of the season's gonna be crucial for them. Looking at the Falcons, they fall to 4-5 just when we thought the Falcons were gonna fix their issues and start playing better. Uh, benching Desmond Ritter, they go and lose a game like this, and Falcons fans are not happy. They're calling this the worst loss since the 28-3 collapse in the Super Bowl.
I mean, if I were a Falcons fan, I would be like, all right, Arthur Smith knows what he's doing. He benched Desmond Ritter. We gave him a shot. It didn't work out. But Taylor Heineke, the journeyman in, like he'll be able to handle this. I mean, 4 field goals,
Yeah.
like that's not gonna win a game. And then
Yeah.
I mean that late third quarter interception really just kind of sealed things for them. So if I was a Falcons fans, I'd be pretty pissed off. I mean, Arthur Smith is in his third year. They're not getting better. I mean, Atlanta can't finish a game. They have moments of brilliance. They look good on paper some games, but then they just, fall apart. And they're under 500 now. So Arthur Smith is going to have a lot of questions to answer in the coming weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. They're just probably the most inconsistent team in the NFL, and 4-5 is not cutting it with all that talent on both sides of the ball. So they got to figure out a lot of shit going forward. Let's talk about, you picked the Cardinals to go into Cleveland and get a big win, right?
Absolutely not. I mean, when your quarterback is gone and you don't bring back Kyler Murray, who is recovered fully, apparently,
Yeah.
there's, I mean, you have announced to the world what you plan on doing in this game, and putting up 0 points was pretty much it. And they did exactly, I mean, fifth round pick Clayton Tune. He ain't ready. No one's heard of him. Like that, no. They went into this game planning to put up 0 points, and they did as expected.
Yeah, and that Browns defense is so badass. It feels almost unfair to put a rookie fifth rounder in there for his first start against that defense. I mean, my Bears did that with Justin Fields. His first start was against the Browns defense and Myles Garrett, and they had like damn near 10 sacks on him. So, and that defense wasn't as dominant as this one. It just felt like they were setting him up to failure.
I think they were trying to protect Kyler Murray from that defense. I think you had that thought last week, and you were absolutely right. That was not the game they wanted him to come back in. I mean, but yeah, that defense beat him up. I mean, over half of the Cardinals' plays went for 0 or negative yards. They finished 1 out of 12 on third down, 58 net offensive yards. I mean, 2 and 3 turnovers. Like it was a rough outing. It was what everyone thought it would be, and I don't know what else there is to say other than Kyler Murray is real glad he skipped that one.
Yeah, and it sounds like Kyler Murray is going to start in Week 10 against the Falcons. So there's something to look forward to if you're a Cardinals fan, and we'll see how he looks post injury. But for the Browns, they hold the Cardinals to just 58 total yards, the Cardinals' fewest yards in a game since 1955. We've seen that twice now this season with the Browns setting records that haven't happened since the 50s. They get Deshaun Watson back healthy for this game. He actually looks pretty good. No turnovers. How high is the ceiling for this Browns team, in your opinion, with that defense? And if Watson can stay healthy, I mean, what can't they do, you know?
I mean, any defense that can sack a quarterback 7 times in a game, I'm going to be pulling for them.
Yeah. 5-3 and a three-way tie for second place in the AFC North with the Bengals and the Steelers. So we'll keep an eye on that for Cleveland. And yeah, the Cardinals just continue the tankathon, but we'll see if Kyler Murray can provide a spark in Week 10. How about your Packers?
I mean, it with Brett Ripien starting, we know he's not any good. If Green Bay had lost this game, I would have been pissed. Uh, Stafford's been out with that thumb injury, so the Rams were, gonna be a mess anyway. But I'm glad, the scoreboard reflects that we actually showed up and played a complete game for once. 3-20. We leaned on the ground game, which was nice. Aaron Jones was back and he played really well. We used him a lot, 1-2 punch with the ground game, which I don't know why Green Bay hasn't been using more this season. Like
Yeah.
we have the running talent. Jones touched the ball 20 times for 73 yards and a touchdown. It's the most carries he's had in a game since week 10 of last season. It's been almost a year since he's been, playing that much. And it showed we needed him. When our receivers are all rookies and can't really hold onto a ball very often, and our quarterback gets in his head and underthrows or overthrows. I mean, it was nice to have the run game to rely on, but Love with his up and down play. I mean, definitely missed some plays there. But he settled down later in the game. He had a beautiful 20-yard touchdown to our tight end, Luke Musgrave. And
Mhm.
they seem to be clicking a bit better because I've been pretty annoyed with the two of them together so far this season. But yeah, I mean, it was a nice game for them. I don't think it's going to mean much. I don't think it really makes us hopeful, but it was nice to see him win, stop
Well,
the
and
4-game losing streak.
yeah, that's the good news is you snap the 4 game losing streak, you get a big win at home, something to be happy about. A game you expected to win with Brett Ripien starting, but to me, this goes back to my point of where I have some criticism for Matt LaFleur, right? Like, why haven't you been playing through the run game? Even when Aaron Jones is hurt, A.J. Dillon is very capable of carrying that load. Feed the run game, play defense, and take the pressure off of Jordan Love and that young receiving core. Instead, it feels like they've been doing the opposite. Now you get Aaron Jones back and you actually feed him and look at the outcome. And this game could have been 30-3, if not for a couple of missed opportunities. So, I'd be interested to see if Green Bay starts to do more of that going forward.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron Jones is amazing. He just passed pro Hall of Famers Paul Hornung and Donald Driver, so seven most scrimmage touchdowns in franchise history, only behind Jim Taylor and Amon Green for running backs, and
Wow.
touchdown numbers. So, I mean, he's great. We just need to utilize him more, and he needs to stay healthy. That's the issue with him is he's always on the injury list every week. So it's pretty frustrating, and like generally he ends up playing anyway, but it's frustrating as a Packers fan seeing all these players consistently fighting these nagging injuries. Um,
Yeah.
One bright side that I wasn't expecting to the game, some of these rookie and young defensive players were just balling out in this game. Our seventh round rookie corner, Carrington Valentine, 3 passes defended, no interceptions allowed on his 7 targets. I mean, he was great. He also, stopped a couple great runs that looked like they were getting off there. There were a couple great stops by our safety, Anthony Johnson. Lucas Van Ness got a good QB hit there. So it was nice to see some of these youngins stepping up and finding their stride on the defense as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that Valentine kid was getting a lot of love on Twitter, so
Oh,
nice
I was
to
I was loving him on Twitter too. Lots of good posts about him.
yeah, nice to see the young guys stepping up. For the Rams, Brett Ripien played so bad that he got released today. And the Rams signed veteran quarterback Carson Wentz today to I guess back up Matthew Stafford. What do you think of that move?
I mean, anyone's better than Ripien. But
But Carson Wentz?
Carson Wentz needs to come with some medical tape and a bubble because that kid is not the person you want coming in when you have quarterback injuries because he's going to be the next quarterback injury.
Yeah, it's so weird seeing like Baker Mayfield in a Rams jersey last year. Now we're gonna see Carson Wentz. It's just the Rams. I don't. The Rams aren't very good these days, and I don't expect them to be any good going forward. They fall to 3-6, and I just don't see much there. And Green Bay is probably going to be a long season too. They play at the Steelers in Week 10. That's a tough game, right?
Yeah, I'm not expecting wins this season from Green Bay. I am expecting to see younger players stepping up, like Romeo Dobbs start catching the football. Our tight end, he got a beautiful touchdown there. Rookie defensive players. That's what I want to see. I want to see player development and play calls getting, some improvement week to week. And the team kind of clicking. I don't care what our record is. I just want to see mild improvements so that
Yeah,
next year we can maybe make a run at the division.
yeah. Um, let's
So
go.
I
Yeah,
mean, you and I picked the games pretty accurately at this point in the week. Up until this next one, we had some back and forth about it. Um, how did you feel about the Commanders beating up on the Pats, 20-17?
this just goes to show how bad New England is. And I said this when we made our picks. If they can't beat the Commanders, who just traded away Montez Sweat and Chase Young, if you can't win that game at home when you're 2-6 and the season's on the line, it's over, right? And
Oh,
they had opportunities to win this game. They had leads. They led at halftime. They Mac Jones had a chance to go win it on the final drive and throws an interception. That I can't. I can't respect or think anything of this Patriot team going forward. They're 2-7, and they're playing like it. They're playing like a 2-win team. They can't find a way to beat bad teams. They're just terrible this year, and I don't. I think this is probably likely Bill Belichick's last season as the Patriots head coach.
That's such a crazy thing to like think about. He's been there for so long.
Yeah.
Like his coaching tree is all over the NFL. I mean, they're getting fired all over the NFL, but um, they've just, they're all head coaches now and stuff. So it's just interesting that like that's an era that's fully coming to an end. I mean, Brady's retired, Belichick's going to be on his way out. But I mean, end of an era for sure. This game was so interesting because the reason I picked the Patriots was because those two defensive players were gone.
Yeah.
And I mean, Sam Howell, garbage. I,
Yeah.
have had my issues with him. He was sacked 3 times, hit 6 times. So, the New England defense, they tried. They tried to hold it together, but you can't do much when your offense is just not doing their job.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just hinges around Mac Jones, and I think Mac Jones might suck. I think that might be the thing that's really throwing this Patriot team off is that didn't they trade up to draft him, and he might not be the guy, right? I've been saying for a while maybe Bailey Zappi is the better. They should bench Mac Jones, and when you turn the ball over on that final drive, where you got a chance to go win it and save your season a little bit, and you turn the ball over, it's just like I don't know. But you draft the wrong quarterback that high in the draft, and you're gonna be in for a rough couple years, right?
And they've committed to him. They've given him an opportunity to improve and to build around him a lot. And he just hasn't. I mean, he's still inept. I haven't
Yeah,
seen any games that would lead me to think that he is a franchise quarterback.
yeah. So it's crazy to say, but the 2-7 Patriots, like last place in their division, and probably going to be a new regime. So,
So
uh,
speaking of rebuilds and teams who need one, your Bears, tough week for them again. How do you feel about that game?
well, so I've been high on the Saints all year. They haven't exactly always played up to their potential, but I've always believed the Saints are a solid team this year. And the Bears once again starting Tyson Bagent. So I picked the Saints, and I was pretty confident in the fact that the Saints were going to win. And the Bears, to their credit, got out to a 14-7 lead and kept it pretty competitive. The Saints win 24-17, but at the end of the day, Tyson Bagent's turnovers doomed the Bears, and this is why a lot of Bears fans were hyping Tyson Bagent and saying, he's better than Justin Fields and blah blah blah. He can be the franchise quarterback. No, he's a Division II rookie for a reason. He turns the ball over 4 times, and you're not gonna win doing stuff like that. To me, this game was all about the Saints getting above 500, taking over first place in the NFC South, a 2-game winning streak now. Maybe they can build on this and use this to propel them to a division championship.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed by the Saints in this game. When the other team turns the ball over 5 times in a game, some with
Yeah,
amazing field position, I want to see more than 24 points on the board. Like, I just don't think they were taking advantage of that. I mean, they did break their turnover streak at 3 games. They didn't turn the ball over in this game. So there's some improvements offensively, but they were not taking advantage of those turnovers 5 times. Like,
yeah,
how do you not put up more points than that?
yeah. And credit to Paulson Adebo. I think he forced 3 of those turnovers. He was all over the field. 2 picks, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery. But yeah, the Saints offense is so up and down, so hit and miss. At least they didn't turn the ball over, but yeah, they do need to find a way to be more uh productive and more efficient offensively, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's one of
But
those games where, I mean, Fields is supposed to come back this week.
hopefully he comes back for Thursday night, but there's still some question to that. I haven't seen for sure. He's been limited in practice, and it
Okay.
might be rushing him a little bit to play on Thursday, but I hope so. I'd love to see him back.
Yeah, it'll be nice for him to come back, but I mean, obviously we don't want to rush that, but I'm sure Bears fans are ready for Bajan to be out of there. But shout out to Montez Sweat. He, started his first game for the Bears, team high 4 pressures on 25 pass rushes, 16% pressure rate. I mean, he seems to be finding his stride in Chicago pretty quickly, which is great for you guys.
Yeah, I mean it doesn't take much to be better than what they've had. So that's a good move to get a guy like him in there. But he's about the only pass rusher we have. Yannick Ngakoue has been so inconsistent, and we spent money on the D line on some guys, but they just haven't. Demarcus Walker, and we made some draft picks, but the Bears are pretty lacking in talent and coaching and management and many other things as well.
Well, speaking of talent, let's take a quick second to talk about Taysom Hill. I mean, the Swiss Army knife of the NFL. He joined Frank Gifford as the only players in NFL history with 10 plus receiving touchdowns, 10 plus passing touchdowns, and 25 plus rushing touchdowns.
That's
So
awesome.
he's amazing. 52 rushing yards, had 2 touchdowns, one passing and one receiving. I mean, it was a great game for him against Chicago. So
He needs to get more love. I feel like he doesn't get talked about enough, and maybe he needs to get used even more too. Like I know, and that's crazy to think that they've got Taysom Hill, Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara. They've got weapons all over that offense, and Derek Carr even, and they can't consistently produce at a high level. It's wild over there in New Orleans.
yeah, I was pretty pissed. He was with Green Bay for a second in 2017 before we cut him, and then he went to the Saints, and I have been butthurt about it ever since. I loved him. I thought he was so useful, but Green Bay is so old school. Like, nope, you're one position. That's the position you play. We don't do trick plays. No, no, no. So
Yeah.
he would have been wasted there, but man, I would have loved to have him at his full potential in Green Bay.
Yeah, it's crazy the player that he's become in the NFL. I loved him at BYU as
Mhm.
a starting quarterback, but no one ever really saw that this kind of potential with him being a five-tool player the way he is. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's great. Speaking of great, your Baltimore Ravens, you have been high on them all season. They you called them your AFC team. I mean, they have proven time and time again they can take down anyone. They
Yeah,
put up 37 points to 3 against Seattle. What are your takes on this game?
incredible. Never would have expected this. I mean, the Ravens aren't just beating teams, they're blowing the doors off of teams. And Seattle is a very talented team. Detroit was red hot when they blew them out. The Ravens are not fucking around. And they seem to continue to get better and better. I mean, Keaton Mitchell, an undrafted rookie running back, steps onto the scene in this game for 138 yards and a touchdown. Geno Stone snags another interception, his fourth straight game with a pick, leading the NFL with 6 interceptions through 9 games. I mean, Lamar Jackson, tell me if you agree. Lamar Jackson's playing the best football of his career, in my opinion, and the fact that he isn't running the ball like as crazy as before, but he's so much better of a pocket passer now. He's so much more patient and getting the ball to his playmakers. I love what Lamar Jackson is doing this year.
He seems so much more cool in the pocket. Like he's thinking things through ahead of time. He's not making those rush decisions. And
Yeah,
I think he has really developed a great connection with his offense this year. Because in the past we've seen him try to force plays. This year he just waits for the right one to open up, and it's just smooth sailing for him. And last week you and I had talked. I don't know if it was actually on the podcast or not, about how I think the NFC is so much weaker than the AFC. I
yeah,
mean, these past couple of games for the Ravens prove that. Like the Lions, the Seahawks, the 49ers, like these are our NFC competitors this season, and Baltimore is making them all look bad. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, coming down the line and into the Super Bowl, because so far this season, I think all the best teams are in the AFC.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, there's two teams in the NFC, right? The 49ers and the Eagles. And I think that those are two true contenders that if they're playing at their best, and I know they haven't been lately, but if they're playing at their best, they can beat anybody on any given day. But outside of those two, it's so much inconsistency, whether it's Detroit, Seattle, Dallas, you name it. The NFC is very top heavy. And in the AFC, a lot of the teams that were in that tier have come up and are now, looking better and better. And the AFC North alone, the AFC North is absolutely loaded. I don't think there's a bad team in that division. If you maybe the Steelers, but even the Steelers have potential. So but the Ravens are so damn good. I'm rooting for this team, and I would love to see them go on a run and at least get to the conference championship game, you know?
Yeah, I mean the Ravens are good, but their schedule is so tough. So we have to wait another 6 weeks for them to play the Niners because that'll be that'll show us plenty, but that's a ways out. I mean, we've got the Browns next week, the Bengals the week after that, the Chargers I'm not concerned about, nor the Rams, but then they play the Jags and then the 49ers back to back. So
Yeah.
four of their next six games are going to be tough matchups. So I'm excited to see how the Browns do against them.
Yeah, the Browns and Bengals, that's two heavyweight matchups right there. I think we're going to learn a lot about this team. If they win both of those, just give them a division. I mean, holy shit, but they're a lot of fun to watch. So
Yeah.
we keep an eye on them. And what's wrong with Seattle? Like the Seahawks have done this a couple times now this year. And the way they played against Cincy at the end and couldn't finish that job, the Seahawks had just taken first place in the NFC West, and we were singing their praises and hyping them up. They played really bad in this game.
They did. I mean, Geno Smith is on his third game with multiple interceptions.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what's going on. He didn't look comfortable the whole game. He was under pressure the whole time. Seattle had 6 first downs. They went 1 of 12 on third down and had 151 total yards
yeah,
compared
and
to Baltimore's 515. I mean, that offense just never showed up, never clicked. I think the Baltimore defense just made them uncomfortable. They matched up really well, but yeah, Seattle did not look like a contender in this game at all.
well, they play the Commanders in Week 10. So if they lose that one, then we need to sound the alarms. But I think that's a get right game. And they've still got two matchups against the 49ers coming up. We'll learn a lot about who the Seattle team is in those games against San Francisco.
Yeah, absolutely. Those will tell us plenty.
So let's go to, in my opinion, the game of the week. And we didn't anticipate this being the game of the week, but it turned out to be that. And Bucks Texans, and Baker Mayfield would have been the hero. He puts the Bucks up 37-33 with 46 seconds left, and the vast majority of us all thought that's the game winner right there. But rookie CJ Stroud comes through. That final drive was a thing of beauty and throws a game winning touchdown with 6 seconds left to get the win. And that was super impressive, but he was impressive as hell the entire game and making throws that just jumped off the TV screen. 470 yards, 5 touchdowns, no turnovers, most passing yards by a rookie in NFL history, highest passer rating by a rookie in NFL history. Holy shit. CJ Stroud is for real, huh?
That game was crazy. I mean, it was a good matchup and you and I are excited for it, but it was so good. Like some of his throws, like I was rooting for the Bucks, but I just switched over halfway through because CJ Stroud was just playing so beautifully. It was
Yeah.
impossible not to root for him.
Yeah. And then that one throw where he puts it in the back of the end zone, drops it in a bucket for a touchdown, and then
Noah Brown
yeah, and then
at
crosses his
75 yard.
arms and
Oh,
just stands there like, oh my God, what
stunning.
a throw.
It was fucking stunning. Yeah, but I mean, on the other side of the ball, so the Texans are on a hot streak. CJ Stroud, he is here. He has arrived. He is better than half the starting quarterbacks who have, been starting for years in the NFL right now. I mean, more than half, honestly. The Buccaneers, 4 straight losses. They're 3-5, falling apart. The offense was great in Houston, but the
Hmm.
defense allowed almost 500 yards and 39 points. I mean, how is that defense allowing 75 yards in 40 seconds for that game-winning touchdown? If I was that offense, I would be pissed as hell.
Yeah, and exactly. Baker should have had the game-winning touchdown, right? And saved them from their losing streak, and yet the defense can't get it done. And I was so pissed at the defense against the Lions. There was
Mm-hmm.
plays to be made all over the field, and they just were out of position time after time after time, and they're way too talented to be this bad. It's very frustrating, and they got to figure it out because they're on a 4 game losing streak and quickly uh, losing ground, losing their chances to be in the hunt in that division.
Well, and I've seen people talking like, oh, next year with this losing streak, Todd Bowles is going to be gone. Baker Mayfield's going to be gone. This was not Baker Mayfield's fault. This was the
Exactly.
defense. Baker
Yeah.
Mayfield had this game won. There is no situation in which a defense should let the opposing team go 75 yards in less than a minute. I mean, that was not on Baker. So when I see hate against Baker in this situation, I was getting kind of pissed off about it. I was like, how did he lose this game?
Well,
Tell me where Baker fucked this up. Show me.
it was probably from casuals who didn't watch the game. You know what I mean?
Pisses me off every time. He dealt with the same shit in Cleveland. Like everything was his fault.
Yeah. Well, you know how the national media goes and the narratives. It's if you win, you're the greatest thing ever. If you lose, all the praise goes to quarterbacks, all the blame goes to quarterbacks. But me and you know better. We
Yeah.
actually watch the games. Um, but CJ Stroud, I mean, he's having a rookie year on levels of Andrew Luck and Cam Newton, right? And we remember how great they were their first year in the league. I'm gonna go ahead and break my arm, pat myself on the back for saying CJ Stroud was my quarterback number one in the draft. But even I didn't see this. This is incredible. But we saw it against Georgia, right?
Yeah.
Georgia hasn't lost a game, and if they should have lost 1 game, it should have been to CJ Stroud and Ohio State.
Yeah. I mean, I had the hardest time rooting for him out of the draft because ew, Ohio. Like I can't pull for anyone who played for Ohio State. But man, I gotta get on board at this point. I think it's been long enough. I can forgive him for his college choice there. But yeah, he's
Yeah.
amazing.
And how about Dare Ogunbowale, the running back, kicking a field goal in this one?
Oh, that was so freaking cool. The last successful kick by a non-kicker or punter for a field goal was Wes Welker in '07, I believe.
Wow,
I,
there's
I
a
saw that during the
throwback.
game. I had to look it up because I didn't know, but like, yeah, Wes Welker was the last one. That was awesome. It was a great kick too.
Yeah,
And he punted a couple times too. It was a beautiful punt. I
that's
would have
awesome.
never known he wasn't a kicker.
Yeah, that's so cool though. I mean, it's so rare, and to actually come through and
Yeah,
and
and
be
make it.
successful. Yeah,
Yeah, it was great. And they needed those points. I mean, look at the score. Like it was a great game. Absolutely.
yeah, yep. 5-star game.
Yeah. So onto a game that was a little more predictable and not quite as good. The Colts went into the Panthers. They won 27-13. We kind of saw this game coming. Well, one of us did. I know you kind of changed this pick just so we'd have some different ones, so I'm not going to fault you too much for this one. But I mean, Bryce Young is struggling. We thought he was going to come in and, just kind of handle things for the Panthers a bit more, and he's kind of been falling apart. What are you thinking about some of these critical mistakes he's making?
Yeah, I mean, on the same weekend, right, when CJ Stroud lights the NFL world on fire and has the greatest performance by a rookie quarterback we've ever seen, we've got Bryce Young over here outscoring himself, given the opponent's touchdowns, throwing 2 pick sixes. Um, I think it's more evident now than ever that the Panthers made the wrong choice.
Yeah.
And uh, it was just so bad. Like both those pick sixes were terrible decisions. Were right to the corner, Kenny Moore, and I don't know, but the Panthers are gonna probably give the Bears the number one overall pick, and so I'm loving that as a Bears fan. How can you trade away that pick and then allow it to be the number one overall pick? But Carolina's terrible. This is what you get for hiring Frank Reich, you know. Um, but terrible by the Panthers. There's not much to say about Carolina, and you just give the game away. You outscore yourself. You got no shot.
Yeah, it was bad. I know you just compared CJ Stroud to Andrew Luck, so I'm going to do the same here. Bryce Young became the second quarterback who was drafted number one overall to throw pick sixes in a game as a rookie in the rookie season, joining Andrew Luck in 2012 in his game versus the Patriots. So, he
Wow.
also is like Andrew Luck. So at least he can take comfort in that.
It's that says a lot about Andrew Luck, right? The fact that he could throw two pick sixes in the same game, yet we remember him as being so great. And that's like Peyton Manning too, right? Peyton Manning has like the record for interceptions as a rookie, but first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
maybe maybe
I
there's some hope for Bryce Young yet that he can turn it around, but so far it's been absolutely abysmal.
I was just gonna say, I think we can forgive him a bad rookie year if he can come back moving forward in the future and kind of pull his game together. But on the other side of the ball, let's talk about the Colts offense. Like the Colts offense wasn't any good.
Yeah.
Like they had one first half touchdown and two Matt Gay field goals. That was it. They matched the Panthers 13 points. I mean, the scoreboard looks differently, but those were two pick sixes. That was their defense who scored more than half the points of the game. Like I your defense put up 14 points and you guys only put up 13. You have to be embarrassed by that. I mean, Gardner Minshew, we've had issues with for the past few weeks anyway. But man, it was just a really rough offensive game on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, and what we've been critical about with Minshew is the turnovers.
Hmm.
And he actually goes turnover free in this game, but still can't get the job done and still only throws for 127 yards. Jonathan Taylor actually has a better game and gets back into the end zone. The Colts are just bad, and I don't see a lot of hope for this team. It goes to show for anyone that was hating on Anthony Richardson, look how bad they are without him, right? He was absolutely carrying that offense, and Minshew can't do jack shit with it.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where like it's always the quarterback's fault. But I mean, they didn't have a single 20-yard gain on the entire game. I
Yeah,
mean, the second half they punted four times, had four first downs and 30 yards.
yeah, just terrible. And the Panthers aren't exactly the best defense in football either, so I don't
No.
expect the Colts to be a very good team this year either.
Yeah. Well, speaking of teams that we didn't, see ending up where they're at, I mean, the Raiders have gone through hell the past couple weeks. They have the Giants coming to town this week. You and I were concerned about Daniel Jones coming back from his injury. And we kind of predicted, like, yeah, if Jones plays through the whole game and he survives the game, yeah, the Giants should be able to pull off the win. If,
Mm-hmm.
Jones ends up retweaking that injury or having to go out early, or if they decide not to let him play at the last minute, the Raiders will probably win. So we had the Giants picked if Jones played. Jones made it less than a full quarter. So I think it's fair to say that we kind of called the Raiders winning this one in that situation. Um, but it
We'll
was
take it.
interesting. It was an interesting game for the Raiders.
Yeah, and I kind of talked about it a little bit, and I think that we didn't talk about it enough is the fact that how big of a deal it was to that locker room to fire Josh McDaniels. And you've been hearing story after story. Did you hear that story from Jay Glazer about how bad it was with Josh McDaniels? And he just had everyone in that building on like eggshells. And Devonte Adams, Max Crosby, all the stars, all the biggest name players since then have been like everything's so much better. Everyone can be happy now. Everyone's loose. Everyone's having fun again. It's like, man, Josh McDaniels is. I was hating on him I was saying he's the reason he's terrible. He shouldn't be a head coach, but I may have undersold how bad Josh McDaniels was for that team.
Yeah, ruining the locker room morale and like the spirit of your players. I mean,
Yeah,
no one should ever hire him again in this
yeah.
situation. He is not head coach material, and I think we have seen that all the interviews coming out where someone was like, "Yeah," and then there was that one game where we beat the Patriots, and he pulls them aside afterwards, and he's like, "Don't ever talk shit about the Patriots." Like, what the fuck? That's not your team anymore. You're a head
Yeah,
fucking coach.
yeah.
Like, that's insane to
Terrible.
me. But I mean, shout out to the interim head coach, Antonio Pierce. Sorry.
Yeah,
He
Pierce.
came in
Yep.
and he arranged some great play calls. There was some, they kind of had a few benefits with Daniel Jones leaving in the first quarter and Tommy DeVito coming in. Not a tough quarterback to beat, but I mean, he really rallied them. They still put up 30 points in that game.
Yeah,
Um, and I think the Raiders needed this win.
absolutely. And we talked about how great the Giants defense had looked in a couple weeks in a row. So for a rookie quarterback and that team to throw up 30 points on them is very impressive. And they just, they look so much better. Max Crosby played the game of the season with 3 sacks. The Raiders just look so much better. And I'm rooting for Antonio Pierce. I liked him as a player, and I am excited about him getting a head coaching opportunity. And I hope that he earns the job going forward. I hope he gets the full-time gig.
Yeah, I think, I mean, if they keep going the way this game went, he should earn it pretty easily. I mean, granted, they still have some issues. O'Connell didn't throw a single touchdown pass, but it was a clean game, no turnovers, no sacks taken. Um, so, looked pretty good for having
Hmm.
to step in and play quarterback there. But I think, I mean, his second start was definitely better than his first start. And I think, the rookie coach and the rookie quarterback and the team being in a better mood, it's boding well for the Raiders.
Yeah, you see the entire locker room smoking cigars post game like they won the championship. And then there was an NBA. Devonte Adams was at an NBA game, and the official was mic'd, and you heard the conversation back and forth, and the officials like, "Great win, glad to see you guys get back on the right track." And Devonte said, "It's going to be a lot better now going forward." So you can tell everyone is so much happier now, and Adams won it out. So for Adams to say that now says a ton.
Yeah, he was asking for a trade and they shut him down. Uh,
Yeah.
so
But now
maybe,
even he's in a good mood, right?
yeah, I was gonna say maybe management saw the firing coming and didn't want to let him go too early. But
Yeah,
I'm glad that the tension is dissipated there because God, it's like having a shitty boss. Like, come on, man.
yeah. Yeah, learn from it, NFL. Don't hire Josh McDaniels ever again to be a head coach. You can let him be an OC, but don't give him the locker room. Don't give him the keys to the team because he has no clue what he's doing.
Yeah.
Um, and then real quick, Daniel Jones suffers a torn ACL out for the season. Where do you think? I mean, that this might be the end of Daniel Jones as the Giants quarterback. I really do think so. I think that they're gonna struggle the rest of this year with Tommy DeVito, or they just signed Jacob Eason, but they don't, no quarterback, and they're gonna have a terrible record and a high draft pick. And why wouldn't you go draft a quarterback, right?
I mean, in this situation, I maybe if he was healthy this season and they, were winning games, but he just hasn't been in enough and played well enough to warrant not going after another quarterback at this point.
Yeah. So it
So
might
I
be an
mean,
end of a era there in New York. Not that long of an era, but still a lot of people, especially after just last season when they made the playoffs, right? Thought Daniel Jones was on pace to be somewhere. They were comparing Brian Dable and Daniel Jones to Brian Dable and Josh Allen last year, and how far that's fallen off and just halfway through the next season.
it's tough when it's in kind of like injuries holding him back. Like
Yeah, but but
that's always a bummer.
even when healthy, his play wasn't there. So, but it does suck. I feel bad for Daniel Jones with that torn ACL.
Yeah.
You would like to see him, be able to prove it on the field. And we'll see. Even if they do draft a quarterback, maybe Daniel Jones will get the chance to compete for his job with the rookie.
I don't see any situation where they wouldn't let him. Like I don't see him
Yeah.
getting cut in the offseason or anything. I think he'll have a shot next year and, be able to prove whether he can take it back over or not. Um,
Yeah.
but then to kind of turn channels here, we've talked a lot about the AFC being so good this week, and the game of the week was not the game we expected. But another great game that you and I had both looked forward to was Dallas coming into Philadelphia.
Yes.
Jalen Hurts, by far the best quarterback in the NFC right now. He has been, putting on a show this season. This was going to be a put your money where your mouth is game for the Cowboys. How did you feel after this game?
I will say this. I felt like Dallas put their money where their mouth was. I really do. I felt like the Cowboys shocked me by how competitive they were in this game. I gave them no shot. I was bold about that in my prediction. I thought it could be actually a blowout, but they played their ass off, and damn near they had multiple chances to win it. And it wasn't like they they played poorly. They're just centimeters away, and it's truly a game of inches, right? And I'm going to go through the steps here. So, rookie tight end Luke Schoonmaker catches that what should have been a touchdown, and you see it's a turnover on downs, right? Because his knee goes down just short of the goal line. You saw that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was
Like
close. I thought it was a touchdown.
me too. And then so game of inches there, so close. Then you've got Dak on that 2 point conversion where he steps out just short of converting that 2 point conversion, right? Inches away. Um, then the Eagles had, the chance to kind of seal it. And on third down, DeAndre Swift runs into A.J. Brown and fumbles. And if the Cowboys recover that fumble, it's their ball at the Philly like 30-yard line with 50 seconds left. Instead, the Eagles recover it. So it's just a fumble recovery away. And then even as the time expires, Dak Prescott hits CeeDee Lamb at the 3-yard line, like 3 yards away, and just not far enough. But the Cowboys were so close to actually pulling off a huge win in Philly and could have set themselves up with a chance to potentially steal the division. So they're close, but they have to figure out how to close out these games, right?
Yeah, I mean some of those penalties that Dallas had. I mean that false start which negated the quarterback draw. I mean, there were so
Yeah,
many little things that they did wrong, but luckily they're little things. Like they
yeah,
showed up in this game. We picked the Eagles to win. We thought, the Eagles were going to have this handled. I have thought that Dallas has played down to the better opponents. I don't think that they have had a great game against an actual competitor. This was a great game. I know they lost. I know it affects their record, but they played an amazing game here. They just need that last 5% of just tweaking little things, and this would have been a win for Dallas.
yeah. But that's the crazy thing about Dallas too, is that you talk about penalties. How about that delay of game, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the final possession that put them back even 5 yards further. That sucked. And then the Cowboys have a history of this too. Remember the 49er playoff game when they were trying to spike the ball and mess that up? They're
Yes.
always centimeters away from pulling off the major upset and proving everybody wrong. And for whatever reason, they always trip up right there. It's like, do you think they're capable of overcoming that and actually getting everything right? Because I don't. That's a tough ask.
I mean, the Eagles haven't overcome it and gotten everything right yet. Like they
Yeah.
have, they're not flawless. I mean, their record is great. It's 8-1 right now, but I mean, they still have a lot of little tweaks they need to do. They just happen to have less to tweak than the teams they're playing. I mean,
Hmm.
they let Dallas put up 375 yards, 8.5 yards per attempt. I mean, the pass rush wasn't the best. I mean, they got 4 sacks, but I mean, passing defense isn't great. Secondary, like, so I think Dallas can overcome some of those small issues. What's scary to me is that the Eagles also need to overcome some small issues, and they're already so good. So what happens if they do overcome those issues?
Yeah,
It's going to be
yeah,
a scary postseason stretch there if they do.
yeah. And the NFC is gonna be very interesting as well come playoff time. The Niners are on a losing streak. The Eagles aren't exactly hitting on all cylinders.
Seattle's
So
falling apart.
yeah, I love this time of year where everything's still up in the air. The good teams are bad, the bad teams are good. Like you don't know. It's a week to week league, and that's why it's okay to have some missteps at this point in the season, as long as you get them fixed in time for the playoffs. And so it's going to be a great rest of the season. I can't wait to cover it all season long. Another thing that goes against for the Eagles, starting tight end Dallas Goedert, broken arm, is going to miss 4 weeks at least. So there's a big loss.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one to recover from. As soon as he went down, like we saw the tackle by the arm, he was yanked around by the
Yeah,
arm and then kind of came down.
yeah,
You and I knew it was an injury.
it's gross. Yeah,
That's a real tough loss for them. I saw people talking shit, like Philadelphia fans before the injury, saying, "Oh, the only Dallas we root for is Dallas Goedert," and he's got a lot of team support, so hopefully he's able to kind of like sideline coach and help his teammates out without being on the field. But that really sucks for him.
yeah. But the good news is, he's not expected to be season ending, right? So that's good. How about the Cowboys signing wide receiver Martavis Bryant, who hasn't played in the NFL since 2018, was one of my favorite wide receivers in the league when he was in his prime. Do you think he can add anything for the Cowboys?
I mean, it's worth a shot. I mean, he's gonna be a bit rusty, but he played in the CFL, or
Yeah.
XFL.
Yeah, XFL, I think.
XFL, sorry. Um, I mean, he's been doing his own thing, but I think it'll be good for him to be back. Oh, he was in Toronto on the Argonauts.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
so I mean, we saw him do great things in Pittsburgh. He was in that crew with Big Ben, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown. Like they had the four Bs there. So we have seen him be elite. And I mean, if he has any of that, I can't see any way that he's not an asset to that team.
Yeah, and they kind of need somebody outside of CD Lamb to step up. And I doubt he's going to be, you know, in his prime, but if he can provide a catch or two here or there, that could be huge. And he's one of those guys where if Dak throws it up deep, Martavis could come down with it, even if he's double teamed. So something to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah, he's one of those players where just chuck it up, he'll find it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of his going all the way back to Clemson, so I'm just happy to see him back in the league. Um, let's go to Sunday Night Football, the Bills and the Bengals, a playoff rematch. There was so much hype, and we talked about this in our pick. Like, uh, the Bills had lost the playoff game there. The Damar Hamlin stuff, incident happened there against the Bengals, and so
I mean,
there
this
was good, huh?
I was just gonna say this was one of those matchups this week that everyone was talking about. Like there were
Yeah.
so many great matchups this week. And I mean, this was a great Sunday night football. We've had some duds in prime time this
Hmm.
season. This one was not. It was beautiful. Great matchup, very well matched teams. I picked the Bengals to win, as did you, because we
Hmm.
just think we're the better overall team. But I was rooting for both offenses. I didn't fuck the defense. I'll just cheer for each offense. I mean, Josh Allen's my boy. But wow, Joe Burrow is definitely back.
Yeah.
I mean, he put on a clinic, 348 yards, 2 touchdowns, 109 passer rating, 31 for 34. His accuracy was beautiful. I mean, Jamar Chase, Taylor Boyd could have both had first half touchdowns if they, hadn't dropped them. So we won't hold that against Joe. But man, he scored through his tight ends when his receivers couldn't catch the ball. I mean, it was beautiful. He was running, he was dodging tackles. I was very pleased to see him back at 100 for the second week in a row.
Yeah, yeah, he looks great. You can tell the athleticism is back. He looks so much more comfortable, uh, playing the quarterback position, being able to use his legs. T. Higgins, they have an embarrassment of riches at the receiving core with, T. Higgins would be a wide receiver one anywhere else. But he's got Jamar Chase with him. And then Tyler Boyd is really good. Joe Mixon. They're so talented. And then on defense, too. They're very underrated on defense. Lou Anarumo has a great unit over there on that side of the ball. And the Bills are great, but the Bills just seem to be the. You're gonna hate this, but I kind of compare the Bills to the Cowboys right now a little bit, where they're just inches away. Right? They're very talented.
I was
They're
just gonna
in,
say that.
yeah, they're in all these games, but they can't seem to do just enough to get the big win.
This game gave me flashbacks to the Cowboys game. I was watching that final drive. I mean, the Bills, the time just ran out on their comeback attempt. I mean, Josh Allen was looking great there at the end. There was 1 3 and out in the second half, and they were trying to turn it around, 50 plus yards on every drive in the second half, within 6 points, 3.5 minutes left. And then Josh Allen just threw a pick at the last minute. Like they were so close to pulling it
Hmm.
off and just one wrong move. But it reminded me of the Cowboys game.
Yeah, and that's the thing we love about the NFL is it's a game of inches. It's a game that it's so the difference between winning and losing is so small that you have to execute at all times, and a little penalty here, a tip ball here, a bad decision here can change the outcome of these games, and you have to play at your best. And a healthy Joe Burrow seems to put the Bengals over the top and in the conversation to beat anybody in the NFL. To this day, I'll say the Bengals should have beat the Rams in the Super Bowl. The Bengals had opportunities to beat the Chiefs last year in the AFC Championship game and go back to the Super Bowl. And they're going to be in the exact same conversation this year with opportunities to go deep in the playoffs again. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch this team the rest of the year.
What's funny right now is the Bengals are last in their division.
Last, but also tied for
Not in a
second.
three-way tie. But I
Yeah,
just the way
crazy.
they're listed right now, technically they're last in their division. That division is just so stacked.
Yeah.
Like it's
Everyone's at
crazy.
least 2 games above 500. It's
Yeah.
wild.
But I mean, lucky for Buffalo, Miami isn't playing that well, so they're only a game back in their division. And the Jets
Yeah.
have, run into some issues. The Patriots are dog shit. So, I mean, the Bills still have a shot, but I mean, comparing the Bills to the Cowboys, the Bills are 5-4, the Cowboys are 5-3. So they're quite literally the mirror image of each other in the other conference.
Yeah, and I think the Bills are in the better spot because the Eagles are so much better than the Dolphins, right?
Yeah.
So, and
So the Bills could pull it
honestly,
together.
if you were to ask me right now, let's do a hypothetical playoffs. Dolphins win the division. Bills are on the road. Playoff game. Bills at Dolphins. I'm taking the Bills.
Same.
But if it's Cowboys at Eagles, I'm taking Philly all day, right?
Yeah,
So
100%. Philly
yeah,
is just like not including Philly, the AFC is so much better than the NFC. I was
yeah,
impressed with this Cowboys show in this last one, but like even if it wasn't the Eagles, I assume the Cowboys would have found a way to lose it in the last couple minutes of the game. Like
yeah.
no matter who they were playing, whoever the contender was. But I just think not including Philadelphia, the AFC is just running away this season.
Yeah, and I think the Niners are going to get back into that conversation too. I know they're on a 3 game losing streak right now. I expect the 49ers to get back into that Eagles conversation by the time it's December and January.
Well, I hope so, because right now it's not the most competitive conference we've seen.
Yeah. We were wrong on Monday night. The Jets, their defense is great, but man, was that sloppy.
That offense was so bad.
Yeah.
I mean, this, we've always heard the argument defenses win championships, going on and on about that. I mean, maybe not if Zach Wilson is your quarterback.
Well, and Zach Wilson was bad, but it was everything offensively. It was
Everything.
the O line was terrible. Zach Wilson was bad. There was some drops, there was some penalties,
Alan
and
Lazard,
yeah,
so
oh my
many
God,
penalties, so
yeah,
fucking stupid.
yeah, yep. And on top of that, I'm gonna say it. I think Nathaniel Hackett is a bad play caller. I
Duh.
like Sean Payton was right in my opinion.
I didn't like Hackett in Green Bay.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers defends him though.
So I think they kind of thought that the Green Bay system is what was holding them back
Yeah,
because Green Bay is very old school. We
yeah.
don't like a lot of trick plays. We don't like a lot of new modern things. So I think the hope was that they would, get to a new team and Aaron Rodgers had his guy and he knew Aaron and his style and it would work there. Obviously Aaron Rodgers isn't playing right now. Maybe that doesn't translate to Wilson. Maybe it would be different if it was Aaron Rodgers. Maybe Hackett's a pushover and he'd let Aaron Rodgers kind of do what he wanted. But as of right now, it is not working.
Well, yeah, like Aaron Rodgers covers up so many issues because he's so talented. Zach Wilson needs everything to be perfect just to be average to good. And so the deficiencies are magnified when a guy like Zach Wilson is out there because he's bad on his own, and then everything just gets worse from there, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, one thing that I noticed in this game, both of those offensive lines were really bad.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
No, the Chargers don't look that good either. Like they got
no,
the win, but you take away that the fumble that went, returned down to the 1 yard line, and you take away that punt return touchdown, and it's
hmm
a much, much closer game.
yeah, I mean, for one thing, I've been keeping an eye on this because I think Herbert is one hard hit away from a season-ending injury. He just leaves him, maybe his O line leaves him in positions where he could get hurt real bad.
Yeah,
That O line, Trey Pipkins especially, he was not stopping anything. But the O line for the Chargers had a registered QB pressure of 51% or 54% on
yeah,
Herbert's dropbacks. Like,
yeah,
you can't stop less than half of the pressures on your quarterback. Come on.
yeah. And that's the thing is like if Herbert goes down, the team goes down just like that. Like there is no structure outside of Herbert. He makes magic happen, and if he doesn't, the team sucks.
Yeah,
And even Herbert isn't always the best. Like we've seen him overthrow stuff. He overthrew Keenan Allen, and Keenan Allen made a circus catch.
it
You
was beautiful.
know?
That catch. It was so
Yeah.
good. But yeah, I think
Uh,
there's so many issues on both of these teams, but the Jets offense just forgot to get out of bed that day.
yeah.
Um, but I mean, I just talked shit about the other O line. I mean, 8 sacks of Zach Wilson. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Terrible.
he lost 2 fumbles, but I mean, I don't think like the Chargers rushers were just so much better than that O line and Zach Wilson. I don't know what else we expected, but I I was kind of hoping that the Jets would find a way to pull this off, and I'm really hoping that they stay at or above 500 because I mean Aaron Rodgers is hinting it'll be a couple fortnights till he comes back, so early December.
Yes,
Um,
it's becoming realistic now. Aaron Rodgers was throwing again pregame and looked great. Look, he was shifting his weight. He was stepping on that leg. He was throwing off of it damn near like he looks comfortable already, which is unbelievable. Um, there's hints coming around the league right now, according to Mike Florio, that Rodgers is a couple weeks away from practicing already. It's crazy. And then post game, I believe it was Derwin James, there's audio mic'd up of him asking Aaron Rodgers like, when are you coming back? And Rodgers said, a couple weeks. So it's becoming real. And if the Jets can just hang on and find a way to win a game or two and stay around 500 or a game above, Aaron Rodgers will be back soon, and then we'll see what this team can actually be. If he can get back by December, that'll be the greatest story in football, you know?
Yeah, I'm pulling for him and the Jets. Just because it's a good story. I would love to see that. And then I want to see the movie they make about it in 10 years, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, my new favorite thing today is the Dan Le Batard show, floating the theory that he never actually ruptured his Achilles.
Yeah.
It was
There's a
just
lot of talk about that
a
because
partial
how,
tear because there's no way he could come back.
yeah.
And he's a
I
four-time
mean,
MVP. There was a lot of things that he shouldn't have been able to do that he's
plus,
done. So.
plus it's that the mushrooms and ayahuasca or whatever that he's taken, you know, that magic medicine.
Yeah, and his injections and stem cell treatments and stuff. I mean,
Yeah. Well, we know he doesn't like injections, but you know what I'm getting at.
I don't know if that's the same type of injection he's talking about, but we'll just
But,
leave that one to Mr. Pfizer. But yeah,
but
a lot of interesting storylines that we'll see coming out in the next 3 or 4 weeks. So a lot of more great football, a lot of interesting things to follow as the season goes on. So I'm excited to keep this going and see how the season goes.
yeah, the biggest thing about that is for Garrett Wilson, Brees Hall, Dalvin Cook, and then that defense, right? Sauce Gardner, Quinton Williams. That defense is so nasty. You would love to see it with Aaron Rodgers and a competent offense. So we just hope we get to see a couple games of that. And even if they can back into the playoffs, it doesn't matter if they're on the road. Just give them an opportunity. I mean, imagine Aaron Rodgers and Jets at the Dolphins or at the Chiefs or whatever it might be. That would be must-watch TV, you know?
Yeah, pulling off a road win, maybe. I mean, oof.
Yeah, it'd be amazing to watch. Let's make our prediction for Thursday night, week 10, Thursday night, a battle of two bad teams, the 1-7 Panthers at the 2-7 Bears. Hopefully Justin Fields plays, but we don't know yet. So that's probably going to impact our picks here a lot, right?
I mean, we just talked about how shitty Bryce Young is, so I don't know.
But Tyson Bagent, I mean, he sucks too.
They're so bad. I can't believe
Yeah.
this game has not been flexed out of prime time. I mean, the Bears are favorites technically, right?
I think so. They're at home. The Panthers are terrible. You
Yeah.
got a point. You got a point. Like Tyson Bagent could honestly probably still win this.
Yeah, I think I gotta pick the Bears here, but I think it's just
Yeah.
gonna be a dumpster fire.
Yeah, I'm leaning Bears, but if yeah, I think I'll go with the Bears and hope Justin Fields plays too, because we would love to see him back out there. And but yeah, it's a dumpster fire. Two terrible teams.
Well, my theory is the Bears only lost to the Saints by 7, and the Panthers lost to the shitty Colts by 14. So
Yeah,
the
let's
Bears,
flex this game out of here. Like put this game at
for the love of God.
yeah, whatever.
All of the primetime games this coming weekend are heinous.
Yeah, it's true. But there's
Yeah,
gonna be other
we
good
gotta
games.
institute flexing earlier in the NFL season. I'm not sure why that hasn't been instituted yet.
Why couldn't we share a couple of these great primetime games from week 9 with week 10? Why do we put them all in week 9?
Well, what's funny is not even all the best matchups were in prime time. Like
Yeah.
that Texans Bucks game, move that to week 10. Come on. Yeah, meanwhile,
Cowboys Eagles put that at Sunday night on week 10. Seahawks Ravens, well, that turned out to be a blowout though.
yeah, it shouldn't have been. But I
Yeah.
mean, now we've got Panthers at Bears. Sunday night is Jets at Raiders, and then Broncos at
Jesus.
Bills. So
Broncos. That actually, don't hate on Broncos Bills. That's actually a really good game, and there's pressure on Buffalo there. They better win that.
I cannot wait for you to pick the Broncos and for them to lose by 50 points again.
No, Denver is past that. Denver's back, baby. Broncos country, let's ride.
Ew. Okay, I'm gonna sign off now. It's too much for me. I think the podcast needs to end. I'm so sorry to our listeners for having to hear Alex say that. My apologies. Time to wrap things up. Y'all have a good week, and we'll
Yeah.
see.
On that note, appreciate all the support. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment. We appreciate all of you. Hope you enjoyed that LenDale White interview, and we got some more on deck. So stay tuned. Good shit as always, Amanda. Peace out.